kick us off. We're again super excited for another podcast, and we have Forrest Dombrow. Did I pronounce that correctly?
You did. Very few people.
Outstanding. And you're the owner of Profitable by Design, and you assist owners of B2B service businesses struggling to scale revenue by developing a comprehensive system called the PBD growth machine. And we want to know what PBD stands for. That'll be one of our first questions. Forrest has spoken to you some of the most prestigious marketing conferences across the U.S. You've authorized a #1 best-selling book titled Clone the Ace, outstanding, and successfully sold several businesses, collaborated with owners, marketers, and salespeople of hundreds of companies from small startups to some of the most renowned companies in the world, including Amazon, Costco, and Google. And besides spending time with your family, more than anything, you'd rather be golfing.
That's right.
And I would question that. I think you'd rather be golfing than spending time with your family, but that's another conversation.
That might be true.
All right, awesome. All right, so before we get going, what does PBD stand for?
Profitable by design.
I like it. All right, all good. All right, so I checked out your webinar. It was outstanding. So, I got two business development professionals here. All right, so I'm a business owner. I'm conservatively, I'm going to go with 10 to 12 emails a week saying I'll book appointments for you, right?
Yeah.
You are not that, but why aren't you that? And give us a quick, a high-level overview of why small business owners, why you shouldn't be lumped in with those guys.
Yeah, well, your question kind of illustrates the problem. Everybody's doing that, and
Right.
it's not going to work well. I'm not saying it never works and you'll never get a lead, but cold email remains viable in some ways. But if it's just, hey, we're going to build a list and we're just going to cold email everybody, we're going to have an AI generated fake, we were looking at your business, and like you said, you get 12 of those a day. And so everybody else they're going to email on your behalf is also getting 12 a day, similar to whatever they're going to email on your behalf. It's just real noisy. And so we need to go a step beyond that. The other problem with the noise is it's just, hey, you want to have a meeting? Want to have a meeting? Want to have a meeting? No, nobody wants to have a meeting. They have problems they want to solve. So if you can lead with a problem or a symptom, then we may be getting somewhere. So it doesn't work because it's so generic and it's so overdone that you're just more the noise, really, in most cases.
Yeah, and Forrest, I just want to bring up too, right? I mean, I think there's a huge misconception of what people could get away with, let's say a decade ago, even what they can get away with now. I mean, the major players like Google and LinkedIn and things like that have stomped down on volumetric outreach so much. So
Yeah.
that if you don't really have an internal team and the bandwidth to be able to keep up with it, you'll run through domains like candy. You know what I mean? And you could really do some infrastructure damage to your company if you're a solo, micro, or small business, ill prepared to take on volumetric work. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that's true. I mean, like you said in the intro, I've been doing sales and marketing stuff for over 20 years, and it's interesting to me that so many things that used to work don't really work anymore. Even something like Google Ads. I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't work for anybody anymore, but back in 2004, 2005, when I kind of started in the industry, we could use Google Ads and some conversion rate optimization and double and triple people's leads in 48 hours. And now almost everybody I talk to is like, yeah, I tried Google Ads with 3 different agencies and it just doesn't work. It's become so competitive. So there's volume on that side. And then the same thing on the email. I mean, people are just fed up with the spam and the nonsense. And so, yeah, it's just as things evolve, you have to keep up, as you said, because certain things don't work. I'm in a program right now to help me build out my own webinars and stuff, which is very effective. But the coaches in that program even tell me they used to get all their leads from LinkedIn, and now that's become, sort of a cesspool of volume, if you will. And so that we have to keep moving on to the next thing that's working. But some of the fundamentals don't ever change.
Yeah.
Like making sure you're leading with the pain points and know who you're targeting and delivering value. And then all of those things are just megaphones, but if you don't have something valuable to say through those megaphones, they're definitely not going to work, volume aside, you know.
Yeah. You
So
know, it's funny. We have the conversation. Adam trips on this all the time too. Is like not confusing that saying LinkedIn doesn't work or that like let's say email doesn't work is absurd, right?
yeah,
Like I'm like people still have a cell phone. They will pick up their phone. They do actually use LinkedIn, so they will actually communicate with you on LinkedIn, and they people get emails and use emails all day long. It's
right.
just the strategies that worked before doesn't work now, and you got to learn how to use the phone, use your email, and use your direct messages or LinkedIn the
Yeah.
way that is currently working for your specific company, given your target audience, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. And I addressed part of what you just said in my webinar. When people say that to me, because I hear that all the time, I tried email or I tried Google Ads or I tried SEO once, twice, 5 times, and it doesn't work. They're talking about it as if it's this monolithic thing. It's
Yeah.
not. It all has parts and pieces. So you could have the wrong keywords. You could have
Mhm.
the right keywords, but bad ad, and vice versa. And so all the parts and pieces need to work together. And then to your point, even if you have all the parts and pieces, you've got to be using them in the ways that they work today. And it might be different than, 48 hours ago.
Very
So,
true.
Forrest, also you talked about, which I really resonated with me, is that you're working with founder-led companies, and typically the founder, the owner, you're not going to replicate the energy and passion that the owner has.
Yeah.
However, both you and Tom could put in potential systems in place that other people can try to replicate that, and you can generate some revenue besides being the founder who's having to drive the majority of the revenue. Is that give us a quick success story about, like we're founders, we're owners, right? Everyone's got an ego. I'm like, oh, no one's going to sell like me, right?
Yeah. 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 Yeah, so that's the other big message, or the big message in my webinar and our business, quite frankly, is that's why it's called the PBD growth machine. And I use the
Right.
word machine and system interchangeably. But as I mentioned a few minutes ago, if you just have a few parts and pieces and people throwing money at random tactics or random salesperson over here, yeah, it doesn't work that well. And in terms of replicating the owner's sort of performance in the sales role, that's actually what my book's about. And just a side note, I'm happy to give all your listeners a free copy of my book. Of course, they can buy it on Amazon so I can get my $6 royalty check, but I'm happy to give out a digital version. But the title of the book is Clone the Ace, and that's the whole point. Obviously, in the context of my book, I'm the ace, and I'm trying to help you clone me and my success. But it's the same thing for any business. If you've got a salesperson, I've seen this at the founder level and at the salesperson level. So to answer your question with a case study, an example, I worked with a founder of a digital marketing agency. He kept getting sucked back into the sales role because every time he hired someone, no one could do it like him. And he finally had me come in and we built out a system. But by the time we were done building a system, and that involves really understanding your target market, the common questions you get, having a good template for your discovery call. So we're fleshing out the right material, creating a playbook, creating a pitch deck that was optimized and templatized. So it was easy to create a new custom deck each time. Those sorts of things. I use the example in my webinar of Lego. When you buy a Lego set, they don't just dump a big pile of stuff on your desk. They give you snap by snap instructions. And so the more we can optimize the processes and then build templates and playbooks and checklists, that's how we start to be able to replicate the owner at least to like an 80% level, right? Maybe they're never going to be quite the owner, but it's about extracting what's working that the owner's doing and documenting it so we can duplicate it as best as we can.
Yeah, I think it's crazy, right, Forrest? And we're all culprits of this. Even we both do this for a living, and I still have to like force myself to go back and do it again and again and again. And
Yeah.
that like The idea of business is literally replication. The whole point of a well-oiled business is literally trying to find clients that you can duplicate work that gets results, and that's why they pay you is for that codification, right? But the funny part is like what you just mentioned, and that is like having, let's say, a good template after, let's say, a discovery call or something like
Yeah.
that. Well, in business, we are all going to do discovery calls. It happens time and time again, over and over and over again. And how
Yeah.
many people that you talk to that you're like, well, let's go check out your follow-up template for like a discovery call. Let's check that out. And they're like,
Right.
I'm not really sure what you're talking about. And you're like,
Yeah.
not sure why I don't know why you don't have a template. Like this happens every day of your life in business. How
Yeah.
come you haven't had a few minutes to really think it through and say, what is the language that I really want to use here? How do I want to brand myself? What are the next steps in this stuff?
Yeah.
And
So
like
Tom, if you're
these
talking
steps are so
about,
repeatable that like you got to take the time to go through it front to back. And when you do, even if it's not perfect, it's a heck of a lot better than what it was before, right?
Oh yeah, for
so if
sure.
you're a small business owner, one of the, if they didn't hire one of you two, at a minimum, you should be starting like document your processes and saying, hey, this when I'm doing a discovery call naturally, these are some of the questions I'm asking, and then at least start thinking about a process.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it really is key. And yeah, people, especially, and that's what we focus on a particular size business in our business, and that's founders of B2B services business. They're doing about a million or two or three or four. It might be eight, it might be a little less, a little more. But they're often overwhelmed. They're doing so many things. They've found success to whatever degree they have through sheer effort and being dynamic, passionate owner. And they don't always have the time to start documenting. I mean, but it is necessary that so we come in and we say you're stuck. The part of the reason you're stuck is you don't have the time or the person to step back and say, let's start building some structure and process here so the next person can come in. I want to circle back to Adam's last question. I never finished the answer. So with that client that I said, that digital agency client, he was finally, after many, many attempts of hiring external salespeople, once we put the systems and documentation in place and templates, he was able to actually take a subject matter expert from his paid search team who just happened to be charismatic and was able to was in many sales meetings when I was creating this stuff, and he was just able to step in and take over. And that was the first time he was able to truly free himself from sales, which increased the value of his company, and he ended up selling his company about 3 years later.
Love that. I
Um,
think like Forrest, it's probably what I mean you probably know the numbers better than I do, but like in some statistics it's showing like 92% of all solo micros and small business hires for a sales rep, BD rep, whatever you want to call that,
yeah,
fail. And the reason is not because they actually like a lot of these people are the wrong people, although sometimes that's the case. It's
sure.
the sheer fact that they're set up for disaster. They have no infrastructure, there's no
Yeah.
guidance or playbook to actually follow. And whenever you throw somebody that's a junior and even a seasoned person into the wild, wild west, it's very difficult to get success, right?
Absolutely, and that goes back to the Lego story I shared earlier. It was only like a little part of the story. What I see happen, it's not the only reason these sales hires fail, but often it is, hey, I interviewed this person. They have 8 years of sales experience in a similar industry, even. So I just
Mhm.
assume they know what they're doing, and I liked them. And then they come in and they drop a pile of business cards on their desk and they give them like half a day of training. Hey, here's where we keep the pencils and stuff. Now, here's your business cards. Go get them. And the
Mhm.
example I use in my webinars, that's like dumping the Legos on the desk, the business cards, and saying, build me a really cool race car, the Millennium Falcon. But you haven't given them any infrastructure, any templates, any, snap by snap instructions to get it done. But once you do, it really makes a big difference, not only in someone's ultimate ability to be successful in the role and get out of that cycle of having sales hires flame out. It also allows the right person to ramp up more quickly. So I just had a client, we created a great sales playbook. It had little videos. So it would say, hey, here's this part of the process. You do this and this and this. Then we even had a little, screen recording showing somebody actually completing that task. And so they hired a new, relatively young salesperson, and she was able to take over at least all the admin portions of the sales process within 2 weeks because it was just all there laid out, snap by snap, step by step. So that's one of the big reasons why those sales hires fail over and over again,
Hmm.
because they don't have that infrastructure and the successful to help them be successful.
Makes total sense. Adam, I'd love to get into the whole concept with Forrest for chasing squirrels. Just real fast if we're
Sure.
ready to get into this. Okay. So like I want to hear your opinion on this. Like we hear from a bunch of different folks that you should have multiple things going at all times so that you never have like all eggs in one basket, right? Um, but for most solo micros or small business owners, right,
Mhm.
typically given what they do and their target audience, most likely there's really one or two major strategies that you and anybody else that's running marketing, business development, sales for your company should really focus on. What are your thoughts on that? And then, like, let's see if we can get a little bit of guidance for some of our listeners. What should you focus on from your perspective?
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, people ask me that all the time, especially these smaller business owners, how many marketing tactics should I be doing or how many business development and basically what I tell them is ultimately for your size and your situation, probably never more than two or three until you get much bigger.
Hmm.
At the beginning, let's just get one working. So, Profitable by Design is actually a newer brand for me. I ran a more sales focused consultancy for about 10 years called Solve Sales. So, I took my own advice and I'm giving you and your listeners now. I said, I'm going to really laser in on webinars. And I said, forget about everything else. I can go speak at conferences and stuff. I've done that and I know it works, but I need to learn this skill here and get this campaign working. And so I've spent about 6 months and it is dialed. I mean, we run them every 2 weeks. We just hit copy and paste. And I know within literally a few percentage points how many sales calls I'm going to book every 2 weeks. I mean, it's like the clockwork. And now I'll move on to another one because I brought in a VA to take care of all the busy work of getting the webinar set up, doing all the invites and everything. I just show up and like the lead singer of the band now. I just show up and someone hands me my guitar. It's already tuned and I'm ready to go.
But you
Then
don't
you
want
can
any, but no green M&Ms though.
but then move on to another tactic. So I would say if you're starting and you're sort of don't have a whole lot going on, stop everything, pick one thing. The things that tend to work best these days for B2B service businesses are things like webinars or other lead magnets,
Mhm.
um, social selling on LinkedIn with a lead magnet, not just want to have a meeting, want to have a meeting. So if you have a webinar and you're starting to talk to people on LinkedIn and you're inviting them to a valuable webinar that solves a particular problem that person might have, now you got something to talk about and something of value to offer without trying to get right into the sales process. So once you get one or two of those things going, then you can kind of move on to the next. Otherwise, you spread yourself too thin.
Wise advice. I love that. I really, really like that perspective.
So the key takeaway is, hey, focus on this one aspect is working. Focus on that.
Yeah, I mean, and I tell people, I mean, unless you have five people in-house in your marketing department or $50,000 a month to spend, then you can do five things, but you don't, so stop that. Right? You gotta maybe one marketing person, if any, maybe one or two salesperson, if any, and you're still heavily involved as the founder and all this stuff. So just do one or two things at most until you get them working. Now that our webinar for us is kicking butt and it's really automated. Now I'm going to move on to speaking out at conferences because that's something I enjoy and I know works well for me. So now I'll add number two.
Yeah. On that same topic, I absolutely love speaking about business development, right? And getting people to understand the difference between networking versus strategic business development. And the concept is really simple. Instead of trying to meet 9 million people, right, and
Yeah.
thinking that the quantity is going to be able to like actually produce results, set like a an overall accountability standard that you want to hit over a certain period of time. So for instance, I want 10 new clients over a year's period. And then
Yeah.
you say like, okay, if I found these partners that made real sense for me And in a year, I could just get two clients out of each human being that I had. So then
Yeah.
I'm like, instead of going all to these like a million networking events and doing like 9 zillion one-on-ones, could
Yeah.
you 365 days to communicate with five human beings and get your results.
Yeah.
And when they
Yeah.
look at it that way, they're like, I think that's probably very doable. And you're like, well, get started, time started. Like, go find your five people and take care of them really, really well. Build
Well,
your
Tom, and we've talked about this before, but you can expand on that, right? Because then when you're trying to set objectives for the meeting, right, you can say, okay, is this person potentially going to be a direct client, or is this going to be a center of influence, right? So I talked about identifying your centers of influence, which can then produce your X number of clients per year.
And then this is what Forrest is great at, right? If I'm hearing him correctly. If you can do it for a founder, the founder of the company, and let's say the founder can successfully find five, six people that produce two client acquisitions per year, and you can write like literally a game plan for it. What Forrest is doing for other people is, well, then that gives you the legs for actually bringing on your next person to clone the ace. And if they can do the five to six, now your company is getting 20 client acquisitions a year. You know what I mean? But until
Yeah.
you're able to do that, it's very difficult. The first thing is you got to get the founder set
Yeah.
properly, right, Forrest?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you can't delegate something that you haven't figured out already, unless you're hiring someone that's higher end that actually knows that better, whatever that is, better than you. But yeah, that's what it is. We have a part of our larger program, the growth machine, is a part called extraction. And that used to be its own service, but now it's just part of the whole machine. And extraction is about getting founders out of these roles. And sometimes people are like, well, I don't have enough money to hire someone right now. I need to. So we do something called incremental extraction. We say, okay, let's just take the admin part of sale. Let's just document just the booking of the meetings and just let's get you 5, 10 hours a week back. And then you can incrementally. And so you could apply that to what you were saying, whether it's networking or otherwise. But yeah, figure something out. Once it's working for you as the founder, document it, either the whole thing or a part of it, and start to extract yourself from that process. That's what we're doing. We're taking our own medicine here as a sort of, even though I've been in the game for a long time, as I mentioned, sort of a newer brand. We're doing the same thing. My partner was saying yesterday, he's like, you really want to field all these sales calls coming off these webinars because we book a lot of sales calls. And I'm like, for
Mhm.
now, I absolutely do, because that's how I, as a founder, am going to figure out what the pitch is, and then I'm going to write it down and I'm going to give it to somebody else that makes half what I make, right? And so we're doing the same exact thing. So you hit the nail on the head.
So, Forrest, if I'm a small business owner, I know I have this issue, but I'm not ready to move forward. What are some things they can do now before they potentially engage you or Tom?
Yeah, I think the first place I start, and Tom mentioned this before, have a destination. People, I need more leads. How many? Because if you say 10 versus 100, it's two different strategies and resources.
Hmm.
So I use the analogy of taking a cross-country trip. If you say, hey, I want to go, can you take me to go visit my cousin in California? We're in New York. Well, I need an address, or we're probably not going to find them, right? So start with that. Just and start with a simple goal and know your numbers. If you need 10 closed deals, how many leads is that based on your, so just get some basic KPIs in place is number one.
Hmm.
Number two would be to get really clear about what we call your population in pain, which is just another way of saying your ideal client profile, but a specific group of people that you can easily identify. In other words, if you went on, LinkedIn Sales Navigator and used all their filters, could you filter down to your population? If not, you don't know your population, right? And then their pain. What is their shared pain? Do they have a flat tire or a broken windshield wiper? Like, what is the shared pain of this group? And so you've got your metrics, you've got your population and pain, then pick a tactic, a marketing or business development tactic that you have the resources, time, or skill to execute that one thing against this plan. Those are your three steps to kind of get rolling.
Excellent.
I love that. Well said.
Thank you.
All right, so Forrest, how do we download your book?
Yeah, well, I will give you a link after the podcast, and you can to the digital.
Outstanding.
And
Anyway, if our listeners want to get a hold of you, what's the
yeah,
best way?
best way is to email me directly at Forrest. That's with two R's at profitablebydesign.com. I'm happy to answer questions or have a call with anybody.
Yeah, Forrest, great having you today. I think the direction that you are giving a lot of founder-led organizations can make a huge difference. My favorite part about this entire thing is really clarifying the address or the destination that you want to go first. So we really appreciate you coming on. I'm glad that you gave the information. I really hope some of these listeners take you up and go to your webinar or reach out to you direct because in my eyes, when you solve the growth issue, anything is possible for what you want to do for your business. Forrest, thanks so much for jumping on board today, and really hope that the listeners benefit from your words.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Appreciate you having me.